All Politics is Local with Jon Fetherston, an in-depth and comprehensive look at Massachusetts political news and current events.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, Jon Fetherston, with the distinct pleasure and honor to be joined by Mike Adams today. Mike, as everybody knows, is a broadcasting legend. Welcome, Mike.
Well, not everybody knows that, and it's a shame. So let's just tell them now.
Sure, tell them.
Yeah, well, I worked at WEEI for 23 years. Had a lot of fun doing that, talking about sports. And worked at a TV network called NECN back in the 90s. Did a show called Mike Adams Sports World. So I've been kicking around a little bit. But the things we're going to talk to you about, John, are much more important than anything having to do with sports. Anything. By the way, did you see how awful that NBA All-Star broadcast was last night?
The NBA has become unwatchable for me. And, you know, big Celtics fan, enjoyed watching the Celtics, but the NBA does nothing for me anymore.
No, and it was weird last night. It was like a circus atmosphere. Yeah. It wasn't about a basketball game. It was about showing off. But meanwhile, you are probably the guy that I respect most when it comes to political positions and knowledge of what's going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Well, thus, your Twitter handle, All Politics is Local, and this program.
Well, that's very nice of you. So you describe yourself as a libertarian.
Yeah, centrist libertarian.
Centrist libertarian.
Not a hardcore libertarian, but I do believe in smaller government. And the centrist part is I think I'm a social moderate. I think there should be a safety net. Mm-hmm. But it's when it gets to be used and abused and fraud and abuse and all that bad stuff that can happen with money going out the door. That's where I draw the line because I'm a fiscal conservative, no question.
Which leads us into our first topic, and it's the greatest thing I think I've seen in my lifetime in politics, Doge.
Doge. The word itself is kind of getting cute now. People are liking it more and more as they figure out what it is. Although I will say that the left wing is freaking out, John, because they know the jig is up. The money is no longer going to be as easy for them to hide and accumulate for their various programs. Doge is unbelievable, and the numbers are staggering.
Anybody should pay attention to Doge. If you're extreme radical conservative, or if you're ultra wacko, socialist, and anybody in between of those things, everybody should be paying attention to where this is going, because it's not Republican, a Democrat, a socialist agenda. This is just corruption gone wild.
It's your money, too.
It's everybody's money, and everybody should be mad about it, because this is the byproduct of years, probably 30 years, of politicians not knowing what they're voting on. Nancy Pelosi, we have to pass the bill to know what's in the bill. That's what this is.
And honestly, it seems to me like all those weird causes they're giving money to in foreign countries should be line-by-line items with up or down votes, thumbs up or thumbs down votes that everybody has to answer for, because it's a ridiculous waste of money when there are people in this country that need money.
All politics is local. The reason why I've named this show for years, we have a local town meeting, and the town has the opportunity to come sit in a room and vote up or down on the budget. And if there's questions on the budget, people are welcome to come up to the microphone and speak to the moderator and have the town manager and the board of selectmen answer questions about the budget. Why we can't do that on the federal level is just because we've become lazy and we've become complacent, and that's why we have these huge deficits that we have now.
The parties have become, I say parties just to be inclusive, have become giant money laundering machines for whatever cause they feel is most appropriate. But it's all based on political power, is what they're trying to do. And it's our money as taxpayers. And Elon Musk is now taking more heat than anybody except for Trump that I've ever seen in my life. This guy is getting hammered. And, he's not the world's richest man because he's stupid. And he certainly knows how to cut corners and save money as a businessman. But to save the government, the kind of money we're talking about right now, this is the tip of the iceberg, what we've been hearing.
Did you see Maxine Waters with her wig falling off of her head?
James Brown's wig?
In front of the Department of Education, just going on and on about how Elon Musk has yours and my Social Security number. You mean like how my bank has my Social Security number?
Yeah.
You mean like how the DMV has my Social Security number?
Mortgage company.
Your doctor, your mortgage company.
Right.
Like,
And
a lot of people have our Social Security numbers. And do you really think Elon Musk is going to steal from Mike Adams or Jon Fetherston?
Do you think he needs the paltry sums of money that
No.
we might have in our bank accounts? But, this guy is obviously a very smart individual. There's no question about it. He's not getting paid for this job. But people are just up and down the street on the left say, well, what about this? This is going to get caught on this. Just calm down and wait and see the numbers before you react, because it's trillions.
I am ecstatic about Doge, but I also have to be fair, because one thing on all politics is local. I'm an equal opportunity person to point stuff out. Elon Musk, if you're going to go into the Oval Office, take your hat off.
Leave your kid at home.
Put on a jacket and tie. I'm
Cute
not saying
kid.
a suit.
Cute kid.
And don't have your son wipe his boogers on the desk of the President of the United States.
It does humanize him a little bit.
It does humanize him, but I mean, there's a time and place for everything. And
you know what? I got to tell you this really quick story, though. My son Scott, who's now a full-grown adult, when he was a little kid, maybe 3 or 4 years old, I had a brand new car. I loved it. It was a Volvo, and I was driving. I looked over and I see him pick his nose, and then reach under the seat of the Volvo.
What little boy doesn't do that? Or,
I said to
or
him,
a grown man
Scotty,
do that.
don't wipe your boogers in my car. He turns to me and he goes, he must have been 3. He goes, I wiped them all over this car. He's a kid. And as cute as that little kid is, I think you're right about it detracts from the messaging you're trying to do.
From the message.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the Doge thing is huge, John. I'm big on it. And you see certain people screeching about it. One of them is one of our senators.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
We could do hours of topic on Elizabeth Warren, but why don't you inform the viewing public about Elizabeth Warren, as I refer to her as the fake Indian.
Yeah. Liawatha.
Do you think she's bought and paid for by Big Pharma?
I know she is, in that they've already revealed the fact that she's the third. She received the third most money. Bernie Sanders leading the pack in money donated to the campaign by Big Pharma. I think Raphael Warnock came in second, and just right behind Raphael Warnock in money donated to his campaign by Big Pharma was Elizabeth Warren. So when she gets on and acts all crazy, and you see the sound bites with her all the time, she gets like nutty, shaky. Talking about an interview, or rather questioning Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on his confirmation hearing. She was insane in that moment, but clearly she has something to hide when it comes to her connection to Big Pharma. And in every respect, she just automatically goes for the kneecaps as best she can. Anything Donald Trump ever said or planned to do is a threat to our democracy, and it's insane to watch her. But then again, Massachusetts has some very unusual representation in the national government. Ed Markey is
The ice cream man.
Well, I have a quote from him. Can I read this?
Please.
Democratic Senator Ed Markey says, quote, "Public school is not a con job. It's equality for every student." He apparently hasn't been to some of the schools that I've been to, and he went to a private school. So what would he know about public schools if he didn't go to one, right? I don't know.
What does Ed Markey know about Massachusetts? I don't think Ed Markey's been in Massachusetts for more than maybe a night in like 30 years. So, I mean, but let's get back to Elizabeth Warren, because if Elizabeth Warren got $1,224,000 from Big Pharma, how come she can't afford more than 2 different outfits?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. You know, I think maybe it's time for her to upgrade her teepee as well, do some renovations. You know why, by the way, you know why she wears feathers? Just to keep her wig warm. Okay, I'm sorry. See that?
We got to put it in the soundtrack.
That's right.
Why we're dumping on, and we could do it all afternoon, Massachusetts elected officials, I will call them.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones to pick on, because I'll say it, she's a flat-out racist. Ayanna Pressley.
She is a racist. I believe, she and
She
Joy
does not
Reid,
like white people.
No,
I mean,
and it's clear that she doesn't. And every time she opens her mouth, it's kind of like, and that racism is bad no matter which side of the coin you're looking at.
Of course
Joy Reid never learned that lesson. She still has a job. But Ayanna Pressley seems to have equal amount of anger in her presentation. It's like, and everything always boils down to, slavery 150 years ago, reparations.
Yep.
It's counterproductive, or it's unproductive completely when she opens her mouth.
But she's been in office now for more than 6 years. Name me one accomplishment that she has done.
Well, I can name you one. I have it written down right here on this. See this note?
I do.
This is where Ayanna Pressley has been responsible for the establishment of the Pride. That's Pryde. It's a senior housing facility for LGBTQ seniors. And she was able to raise $850,000 so that the Pride, Pryde, could put up people who are, they're elderly people, so more power to them. They have a place to live. That's nice. But it's for LGBT people, not everybody. So, again, it's a.
Is that the biggest priority? And listen, everybody needs a roof over their head. Everybody needs a home. I don't care, gay, straight, or anything. Everybody needs a home to live.
Sure.
But if that's all you've accomplished in more than 6 years working for the federal government, maybe a little less, attacking people and posting things that you're going to fight. And okay, you don't like Donald Trump. But, I've had this conversation with Jim McGovern for many, many years, okay? Jim McGovern does not like Donald Trump. Jim McGovern's entitled to his opinion. But I have challenged Jim McGovern, okay, you don't like him. You don't have to like him. But you still have to represent the people of your district. And you still, if you're not willing to pick up a phone and have a conversation or meet for lunch or have a dinner, you're not doing your job.
No, that's right. And
you're not doing your job.
And not only that, but, you can't just automatically lambaste somebody for having a different viewpoint, which is what they do. Like when it comes to anything Donald Trump says is automatically no good.
Right.
And he's a jerk and he's a Nazi and he's a racist and all that. They just start with immediately the attacks on Donald Trump, the person, without listening to what he's proposing or what he's trying to accomplish by his proposals. And that's just ridiculous. But in Ayanna Pressley's case, it's clear that she is a cottage industry race baiter. And she throws the stuff out there because it gets her more clicks amongst those MSNBC watchers or what have you, and that increases her power and what she thinks is popularity. I disagree. I think that there's a lot of people out there that just automatically say, well, why do you hate white people? It's racist to do that. It's just not right.
If Donald Trump came out today and told you oxygen was good, Presley and her followers in the squad,
right,
they would all stop breathing today. Right. I mean, just because Donald Trump said it, And listen, I agree with a lot of things that Donald Trump says. I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with everything Mike Adams says. I don't agree with everything that
my wife
says.
Should.
I should. But that is politics. That is working towards the middle, is what has always made this country great. And something has happened in the last 30, 35 years where that has broken down to the detriment that you need a Doge, that we are no longer perceived, internationally as the superpower that we are. I think we're getting back to that now, but it's okay to disagree with somebody. It's okay not to, like somebody, but you still got to do your job.
Well, and it all reverts back to stupidity and making bad decisions and misspending American taxpayer money, or in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts taxpayers' money, as Maura Healey has done. We talk about this with the immigration situation. Now, it's one thing to say we're losing population in Massachusetts because the taxes are too high. And that is a known fact that 27,000 people left Massachusetts because they fiscally couldn't stand it anymore. But what they don't know is that those 27,000 people were replaced by 67,000 illegal immigrants who are not only they don't have Social Security numbers. They do have a driver's license, though, thanks to Maura Healey, which at great cost to the taxpayer, hiring interpreters for the DMV or the RMV. And so they have cars, and they have I don't know if they have insurance, but they have their driver's license, and they're all in Massachusetts living in, as you know,
migrant
as somebody who ran a migrant shelter in Marlborough. It's an amazing amount of money that is now added to the budget, $1.8 billion, I believe, in the last year and a half.
Year and a half, yep.
That Maura Healey's added to the taxpayer burden in order to accommodate the right to shelter law in Massachusetts. That's a lot of money for a state budget.
Since 2003, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has allocated more than $3.5 billion towards the migrant thing.
To accommodate them.
To accommodate them.
And feed them.
With still no end result. What is the end result of all of this? Because you're not going to find housing for everybody. 8 weeks ago, 2 days after Christmas, a gentleman was found in Revere with an AR-15 and enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of Massachusetts. And Maura Healey comes out and says, we're going to do reform. We're going to, do background checks on people. We're going to limit stays in the shelters. You fast forward to last Thursday night. The Senate approves the bill already approved by the House for another $425 million to fund the Healey hotels or the migrant shelters until the end of July of this year. Okay. Now, and then what? What happens at the end of July? There is no more money left in the rainy day fund.
Where do those people go?
Where do those people go? And what is the taxpayer of Massachusetts at that point will be over $4 billion spent. What does the taxpayer benefit from that? And you could even make the case that what do the migrants benefit from this? The migrants have been set up to fail by Maura Healey. And it almost feels like it's by design. Because to your point, about the population, the only reason that Massachusetts grew in population is because you're bringing migrants here.
That's it. And it's already a state that has 1 out of 5 people that live in Massachusetts were born in another country. Now, I'm not saying, look, as you know and I know, I come from immigrants too.
Sure.
Mine came here in 1620 on the Mayflower. It's perfectly okay. We are a country of immigrants. However, there's got to be a limit to who you're bringing. You got to know who you're bringing in. You got to know who they are, where they are, what they do. It's a quality control thing. If you just bring in all these people and put them on in housing and on the streets and jobless or whatever, you don't have a plan for those folks. And if you're charging the taxpayers to support these people, then you're doing yourself a disservice as well on the other side of the economic structure. It's costing us.
It's not $4 million. It's $4 billion with a capital B. Okay? And there's a lot of problems in Massachusetts. I will tell you that the mental health crisis in Massachusetts is probably the biggest crisis in mental. You put kids in a mask and in front of a Zoom computer for 2 years. Kids in middle school now that went through COVID, a lot of them are messed up.
Yep.
A lot of them are messed up.
Way behind.
Way behind, but just even mentally messed up. There's addiction problems in the state. There's gambling addiction problems. There's alcohol and cannabis addiction problems in the state. I'm not saying you don't take care of migrants. I'm not saying you don't help people, because that's been my mantra in my whole life of public service. You do have to help people, but you have to have a cause to, an end game to okay, so this is what the plan is. There still is no plan.
Yet only 8 of the state senators voted for the bill that was proposed to make sure that the benefits of the shelter program went to Massachusetts residents, not illegals. The rest all voted nay.
Border Czar Tom Homan on Friday morning with New York Mayor Adams sitting right next to him, literally said on Fox News, there is no more funding of migrant shelters, federal money coming in for migrant shelters. So the money's been cut off. New York is closing migrant hotels.
Yeah.
Where do you think all of those people are going to go?
Why didn't Joe Biden realize that when you bring 10 million illegal aliens into this country all at once, that there's going to be an impact financially nationwide on the taxpayer, but also locally, because all politics is local. You bring in a whole bunch of immigrants, and Massachusetts leads the world in that. The school systems suffer. the school classroom sizes get more crowded and less interpretive. You got to have an interpreter in the classrooms now because a lot of the people don't speak English.
But see, Biden did know what he was doing.
You think he did it on purpose?
And the media doesn't like to talk about it. The reason why Biden opened the borders is he wanted to ensure that the Democratic Party kept its power base. And he wants to increase the population throughout the states. And if you look at the states that he sent in the middle of the night on flights, it wasn't people walking over the border. He flew people into these states. He wants to grow Senate and Congress seats.
Yeah.
And it's anybody who's willing to do 2 minutes worth of legwork, because you won't see it on the nightly news, you won't see it on the liberal media. Heck, Boston media doesn't even want to carry stories about the migrants' shelter crimes that are happening every single day that they're happening.
I'm glad you mentioned that because you more than anybody else are aware of and have been in contact with people regarding the heinous stories that have gone on in some of these shelters. Rape, murder, drug peddling,
sex trafficking of children. Yep.
I've
seen it all.
You've been a witness to it, and that's what makes you an authority on exactly how bad this problem is. But how great is Tom Homan? He's coming in here. I mean, I'll just give you some examples of some of the fine people that are brought in under this program. A Brazilian national convicted for his role in murdering 11 people, mostly teenagers, has pleaded guilty in Boston federal court for lying on his asylum application at an immigration hearing. He's a murderer. Okay, so he's lying on an application. Do we expect him to tell the truth? Antonio Jose de Abreu Vidal Filho, 31-year-old, known for his involvement in the 2015 slaughter in Brazil, has lived in Malden, Massachusetts, which is where Ed Markey lives, and I'm sure they probably almost bumped into each other on the streets. But they're taking him off the street, and they... Finally, I mean, the list is endless, of course, but he's just one guy walking around because he was released and set back. They arrested him in Rye, New Hampshire, but he had been living in Malden. And he's been, for 15, 20 years now, he's been skating around the country with fake driver's licenses trying to accomplish criminal activities. An illegal immigrant has copped to being a fentanyl delivery boy for another man accused of pushing tens of thousands of fentanyl pills in the Boston area. Freddy Artemio Guerrero Soto, a national of the Dominican, pleaded guilty with a conspiracy to distribute fentanyl. Now, we all know fentanyl is a deadly drug. The charges carry a minimum prison term of 10 years up to life, and he's scheduled for sentencing in federal court in Boston on May 12th. These are tip of the iceberg moments here. But until someone goes out there and rousts these guys and ICE gets some kind of cooperation from the powers that be in Massachusetts, we're never going to clean up this mess. So now, finally, Tom Homan, and the guy's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. He's a bulldog. He's out there saying, we're going to get the worst people first, which is smart. And he's all over the country now, getting people off the streets that shouldn't be here to begin with.
Well, you hear this, we're a welcoming community. I'm a welcoming human being, I welcome everybody. Anybody who follows the law, I welcome.
Right.
You look at Somerville. You've got something there about a gentleman that was picked up in Somerville as well. And Somerville's now is, woe is us. ICE is terrible. They're coming to our community. No, I applaud ICE for coming to their community because not only is ICE doing a dangerous job, they're restoring law and order to your streets. And if you're a restaurant owner that hired illegals and you now don't have help, I don't feel bad for you, okay? Go out and follow the law. I follow the law. Mike Adams follows the law. If the worst I do is, speed a little bit over the, then
not you.
If I do, give me a ticket and hold me accountable. But yes, we're a welcoming nation. We're all migrants here.
You mentioned Somerville.
But we have to follow the law.
That's right. The laws are there for a reason. The minute you don't, Democrats are good at saying, no one's above the law. Well, except the 10 million people that cross the border, they're above the law. Oh, Hunter Biden, he's above the law. It's just ridiculous hypocrisy. You mentioned Somerville. Boston immigration officials blasting Somerville, which is a sanctuary city, by the way.
They're welcoming.
That means they allow all different kinds of birds to live in the trees there. It's a sanctuary. And they're also blasting Salem officials for allowing migrant assault and child rape suspects to walk free. Who? Burkan Karamirthu, age 27, recently grabbed in Somerville by Boston-based ICE enforcement, and he now faces deportation. The Turkish national was arraigned in late December for assault and battery on an intellectually disabled person and witness intimidation. ICE said he was set free, as is the custom in Massachusetts. Set him free, then ask questions later. But they tracked him down in January. They wanted him off the streets. Another one here. A Guatemalan national charged with 3 counts of forcible rape of a child and 3 counts of aggravated rape of a child has also been arrested by immigration agents out of Boston. Jose Fernando Perez of Framingham was led out of the Essex County Jail in Salem. He, too, was tracked down by the immigration officers in Donald Trump's Worst First initiative.
We're recording this podcast. We are less than a mile away from the city limit of Framingham. And this guy has been walking the streets for years in Framingham, and he's a child rapist. How does anybody have any problem with ICE picking this guy up?
Oh, that's right.
And if you do have a problem with it, I have a problem with you.
And you've been on national news regarding a story that happened in the Marlboro Holiday Inn, where you were in charge of the shelter program, and you reported to the police an incident whereby a man, a Haitian man, raped his own daughter, impregnated her, yet didn't get arrested?
For 8 months.
For 8 months. They did move him to another shelter, which was...
I moved him to another
You
shelter.
did, right.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
But that was what they told had to be done.
And, it's certainly not about me, but I think if we hadn't made national news with that story, he'd still be walking the street.
Right.
He'd still be... I had to literally shame the Attorney General and the Governor to act on this.
But, John, why is
And when the
Massachusetts...
Boston Globe finally wrote an article about it, then something happened.
Boston Globe's way behind the 8 ball on all of this stuff. And being the big news source from a newspaper perspective in Massachusetts, you'd think they would be on top of this story to earn some credibility. But why is Massachusetts so averse to obviously proper behavior in a situation like a child getting raped by her own father?
Mike, if I knew, I would. It's so frustrating to me. I certainly don't know as many media personnel as you do, but I do know a few media people, and I've reached out to them in the local. Like this story has gone national. It's been on every national news story. But if you don't pay attention to the national news and you only pay attention to local news, you don't know this has happened. I've reached out to local people here that I've known or people that, know people and, this is a good story, we'll get back to you, and the phone don't ring. It's the legacy media in Boston, afraid of losing their access to Maura Healey.
Right.
And that's the only thing that it can be, is they're afraid of losing their access. And I have never heard a legacy media station in Boston ask Maura Healey about the man who impregnated his own daughter, the AR-15 guy with fentanyl, the guy who crashed his car into my office, the guy who raped another person down in Taunton. I've never heard anybody ask the question, just a question, not even an interrogation. Hey, what happened in Taunton with that rapist? Nobody has ever asked her that. So the public hears, Maura Healey's proposing changes and Maura Healey's demanding accountability, but there is
no action.
And then the Boston media doesn't even report on the fact that she said 8 weeks ago that she was going to fix something. She never fixed it. So the general public just goes, she said she was going to fix it, so she's going to fix it. Maura Healey's word is not her bond. And
it's never been a proof of any forthcoming action to positively affect these situations. Now, the all politics is local thing. We go to what's happening in Boston with Mayor Wu. Mayor Wu is like this little mini dictator now. They had a 12-1 vote against making sure that the shelter money went only to Massachusetts residents. The only dissenting vote was Ed Flynn, so they lose 12-1. In other words, that money can continue to go to migrants ahead of Massachusetts citizens. How can Michelle Wu just by mandate throw that down there and say, this is what we're going to do, and have the council say, oh yeah, she's right, 12-1 against fairness to Massachusetts citizens?
The Boston City Council is you could do a Netflix movie about that, because they are pay-to-play hacks. Because you look at Boston under Menino, and I was pretty friendly with Menino. I remember once saying to Menino, I was like, you know what, you're one of the few Democrats I really like, you know? And like,
he was very likable.
He was a very likable guy, but he ran a tight ship. Law and order, clean streets, you know, no shenanigans. Yeah, I mean, did he do things, but he ran a nice city. And you look at the city that Menino had as the mayor on his last day, and you look at Boston today.
Yes.
You cannot tell me. Your eyes just tell you the whole story.
The damage is done now.
You look at, I was in Boston last week. Newberry Street does not look like Newberry Street anymore. No. The streets are not as clean as they used to be. There's potholes everywhere. And okay, you wanted woo, you got whoa instead. You know, I mean, whoa, like, so, you know.
And they have nothing good to report. The school test scores are down.
Truancy in Boston is like 40%.
And they say Boston's crime rate is well, you know what? A lot of the crime in Boston isn't taking place in Boston. As we know from these stories, the criminals are now scattered around Boston. And they're everywhere in Massachusetts, and many of them are illegal immigrants, and that has to be dealt. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is say, oh, well, you know, I'm anti-immigrant. No, I'm anti-illegal immigrant.
I'm anti-anything illegal.
But I mean, the fact is, it's not a dislike of immigrants. We love immigrants.
Right, absolutely.
If they're legal, do whatever you want and come here, and we welcome you with open arms.
You know, I've told the story at times, there were a lot of good things about working in a migrant shelter. You saw a lot of good story. And then when you were actually able to help a family get their kid into school, learn English, find a job, find a place to live, that's a great American story. And I'll tell you that 98% of the people that I worked with were great people. Mm-hmm. And good for them. They were told to come here by America and everything was free. It's not their fault. And then you help them find a job and get a house. Great story. But the 2% of people that rape their daughter, domestic violence, steal. I don't care if
one guy tried to kill you with his car.
Came very close. I mean, by the grace of God,
And you were there doing good things for people, and in a responsible way. The one thing about you, Jon, is that you're truthful, you're honest, you're straightforward. You don't have an axe to grind against individuals. It's policy that you object to. But you're against bad policy, and
I'm against bad policy. I mean, government is to help the people. But Ronald Reagan said it the most dangerous, words in the English language is, "I am here for the government, and I'm here to help," because the government doesn't help anymore. It has agendas, and I think we've got to get back.
And it makes everything cost twice as much.
It makes things cost. But what we want to accomplish with you on this podcast is we want to be, if you don't hear it on the Boston media, come to All Politics is Local with Jon and Mike, and you're going to hear it, because we're going to call it out. If it's not being discussed in the local media, this will be your sort to go to. We'll have candidate guests. We'll have experts coming on to talk about it, because you're not getting the full story in the Boston Globe or the legacy media here in Boston.
No, and the Herald, try as they might, they're not the Boston Globe, as far as the positioning in this marketplace, and it's really shameful that the Boston Globe doesn't do a better job of reporting both sides. It's typical kind of a Massachusetts, which is a one-party state, and I think it's important for us to make any progress here to have it be a two-party state as best we can, and to find people, once you have a one-party system, everybody gets the pay raise they want, because who's going to say no?
Who's going to say no?
And no one's going to argue with bad policy, because who's going to say no? It's a very dire situation. It's going to be California East if we don't watch out for it. But what you'll get here is you'll get truth, you'll get honest opinion, you get information you can't get anywhere else, and you'll get people who are especially you, Jon, well-meaning people when it comes to educating the population.
I got to tell you, when I was a selectman, which was probably more than 12 years ago now, every, and I stress the word, every Board of Selectmen meeting that I had, there was a reporter in the room.
Right.
In the Metro West Daily News.
Right.
Every meeting. There hasn't been a reporter in a select board meeting in 5-6 years. COVID killed the local newspapers.
Yeah, they went to
The Metro
hiding.
West Daily News was a pretty, well-to-do, newspaper in the Metro West area. You see it. You see it now up in Lowell. You see it up in Peabody. There is no more local media. So if the local media isn't reporting on your board of selectmen, your city council meetings, that just empowers bad behavior with your politicians.
Right.
Because not that I ever was worried, what I said in a meeting, but the next morning you knew what I did. You knew what I said, or you knew what, the Framingham Board of Selectmen did. There was some accountability. There was news on it. Now, nobody has any idea what's going on in their backyard.
We're going to change all that.
We're going to change it.
You and me, we're going to make this a place where people can come and get their opinions out no matter which party they belong to. And I don't know that the Democrats won't be afraid to come on here, where they get asked the right questions.
We've always run all politics as local as being fair. Like, I'm an equal opportunity,
Right.
I call it out. Like, if you're a Republican and you're talking BS, I'm going to call you out. If
Right.
you're Democrat, you're going to call it.
So we'd love to hear from you. As a matter of fact, All Politics is Local on X.
On X
is your handle, Jon Fetherston, and I'm at Mikey Adams 420 on Twitter as well. And we will listen to you. We will bring in great guests so we can learn more about what's going on and hear from them on both sides of the political coin. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing this because there's a lot of information that has yet to get out.
A lot to get out. And you'll be able to find this podcast on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So we're
YouTube.
YouTube. We're going to do it as a video.
Because I look really good on camera, don't I? I was made for YouTube.
Made for you.
That's what they tell me.
Let's close out the segment on one last thing, because we didn't get a chance to go to it, but I think we really have to.
Okay.
What is going on in Worcester, Massachusetts?
Oh,
right now?
it's funny because I do a lot of driving in Worcester. I enjoy the potholes. In Worcester, they've had a sudden emergence of the moniker a sanctuary city for LGBT. I can't the alphabet soup. LGBTQ. Can't we just make it, queer? Just say it, because that's what the Q stands for.
Correct.
Simplify. Just genericize it. They had a big meeting the other day, and people were really going a little crazy. They're worried about their lives. Well, you have to save us from. I don't remember hearing about anybody threatening to kill anybody in the LGBT community in Worcester.
No.
Have you?
No.
Well,
what the people of Worcester should be worried about is that a lot of migrants who rape children are sent to Worcester. That's what you should be worried about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't detect any any different animosity in Worcester than I do anywhere else for people who are of that ilk, because nobody cares about that. But no one's out to kill you either.
No.
And they're acting like, we're in danger. And of course, Worcester now is going to be known as the sanctuary city for LGBTQ community. So they'll get more people there that are LGBTQ.
So what does that do, though?
Nothing. I mean, what did it ever do
Are they
wrong?
going to hire a different police force?
Did people stop going to Provincetown because it was known as a gay, community? No, of course not. It's ridiculous, but it's also kind of sad in a way that these people get up there and get all this national attention based on a faux fear of some evil that's going to be done to them based on their sexual preferences. It's ridiculous.
But we talked about the Boston City Council, how they're not doing their job. You can be pro anything, an agenda, but to be a fair city councilor, you have to go, okay, listen, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for bringing this, but let's, we'll report back on this in 30, 60, 90 days and do a little bit more information. You have 20 people come and yell and scream at you, and then you change your whole policy that night in a meeting?
Right.
That's not good government. Because I used to tell people all the time, the will of the room is not the will of the people. The will of the room is there's 20 people and they're upset. Okay. And we're listening to you and we will report back. But you can't change your whole image of a city on one meeting. I
will say that if I had 20 people in my room, it might change my opinion a little bit. Jon Fetherston, everybody. He's a hero in this community for the reporting he's done and for the truth he tells. This is fun. We got to do this again soon. We're going to do it every week. Once again, follow us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We'll put it up on Rumble as well. He's Mike Adams. I'm Jon Fetherston, and you're watching All Politics is Local.